What's going on, everybody? I wanted to sit down and talk to you guys today. Make a video about something that not necessarily tough for me to talk about or anything like that, but it's not one of my proudest achievements in life or proudest things that I've ever done or gone through. But I recently kicked nicotine pouches. Something that I shouldn't have been using or hooked on in the first place. Something that I wish I'd never done, wish I'd never started. And I just kind of wanted to break that down, talk about how I got there, my journey through that, and kind of what that entailed, and then what led me to deciding to quit them, and then that process of quitting them over the last few weeks. So I'm not, I was just doing nicotine pouches. I did them for about 2 years. In fact, we're just hitting right around 2 years now. Wasn't really ever like a smoker or dipper before I got on them. I'm a cigar smoker. I screwed around with cigarettes when I was a lot younger, smoked cigarettes just to keep me awake in Iraq and stuff way back in the day when I was doing like convoy type duty through the 2000s. And I would use cigarettes sparingly. Mostly it was like Black and Milds and stuff like that though, or like those kind of little cigar things. Like I said, I'm a recreational, I'm talking once every couple weeks or so cigar smoker. So I've always, I've dabbled in nicotine. I've tried dip and stuff like that. It wasn't really my thing. But I've always been a very, casual relationship, I guess, with nicotine. And I'd always, the Zins, I'd kind of seen people using them, Zins or pouches, whatever. I'd seen people using them at work. I worked with a lot of guys a few years back who dabbled in them a lot or used them pretty religiously, pretty frequently. And I'd always been kind of curious about them. Obviously they got all the flavors and stuff like that, but I've always known that nicotine is a highly addictive substance. My mom to this day is a smoker, and we're trying to get her off of cigarettes, which is kind of ironic about my whole path through this whole thing. All the stuff that is kind of entailed with that, with my mom being a smoker. I got a lot of friends that were smokers and things like that, and I know it's hard for a lot of people to kick it. I'm personally not a huge fan of cigarettes. Wasn't a huge fan of dip, like I said, when I tried it. Cigars I love, but you don't inhale them. It's just like, in the mouth and stuff like that. But it was always something to do with my hands or, kind of keep me busy, keep my mind off things, keep me focused on what I was doing. So that was all my experience with it. So when guys at work were using the Zins or whatever brands they were using, I was always pretty intrigued by it. I was always curious. I was always kind of like, I wonder what this is all about. Because you hear a lot of, there's no risk or anything, but like the adverse effects that you get from smoking aren't there with the nicotine pouches. You don't get smoke in the lungs. You don't get, the smoke in the mouth and the tar and things like that. It's just pure nicotine, right? Same with dip. You're not getting tobacco. You're not getting that kind of stuff that we all saw the videos growing up, like the commercials on TV, dude's whole lower jaw is gone and everything like that. And the research suggested that none of those kind of things would occur, right? So, I was, was curious about the nicotine, curious about what kind of stuff that entailed. And this is when I was working in Colorado, and I was starting to get ready to move down to Florida. I was working a 9 to 5 up there, and a guy I worked with, a close buddy of mine, he was an avid Zen user. I can't remember the flavor he was using. It was a minty one. It was either wintergreen or one of those things. And he was talking about, you know, we had gotten on the subject of it because some guys also were vaping and stuff like that. And so him and another guy were having a debate about, you know, vaping versus the pouches and what was better and all this kind of stuff. And I was curious. I was like, you know, joining the conversation with him as a non-nicotine user. And I knew I didn't want to vape. I didn't ever want to try anything like that. I really didn't want to do any of it. I was just curious. And the guy was talking to me about how easy it is to lock in with it, the focus, using it as a nootropic. There's really not a lot of harmful side effects that are known right now. Still to this day, there's some things that are starting to come out about it, or people are speculating or whatever. But really, there's a lot of, you know, it's unclear. There's not a lot of research done as to what the adverse effects of nicotine pouches are going to be. I'm pretty convinced now there's going to be stuff that comes out eventually, but there just hasn't been a lot of research that's come to you know, our awareness yet as to what adverse effects there's going to be. So at the time, the guy's telling me there's really not a lot, and I looked online, and I didn't see a lot of stuff either. And then he talked about like the weight loss and the effects he had with that. It was able to help him, you know, dial in on a lot of stuff. Like I said, focus, you know, kind of curbing his appetite, things like that. Which that was the one I think that really piqued my interest, because I had been losing weight for a while at this point. I think about 4 years I had been on my, you know, carnivore diet thing. Had lost probably to that point about 60, 70 pounds, something like that, maybe 80 pounds. And, you know, I was trying to, you know, as you lose more weight, you start slowing down a little bit. And I knew I wanted to get down to where I'd lost like 100 pounds. Sorry, my nose itches. But you know, things start slowing down, things start tightening up the more you go. And I knew that last like 20 pounds off or whatever it was going to be, 20, 30 pounds to get down to 100 pounds weight loss was going to be, you know, kind of a motherfucker to do. So I was interested in something that would help me with that, you know, to help me lock in a little more and, you know, curb my appetite and help me with fasting and things like that. You know, it's kind of stupid looking back on it because I was pretty disciplined and I could have done it without it and things like that. But, you know, hearing all this stuff I was interested. So he offered me one and I tried it. So here I am, like, you know, a grown ass man, 40 some years old. And I'm basically a high school kid given into peer pressure, right? Is basically the way I look at it now when I look back, and what a stupid ass I was. Because I'd love to take a time machine back right now and slap the shit out of myself for this. But I digress. So I tried one. I think he had a high dose of 9 milligrams, something like that. Something I definitely shouldn't have tried out right off the rip, because I was kind of, it got me kind of, you know what I mean? I liked it. I will say that I liked it. The sensation it gave me, but it was like too much, you know? If you've never tried it, it's hard to explain what it feels like. It's just like a rush, you know? It's like a head rush, body rush. Definitely wasn't locked in. It was like too much to where I got jittery and all this kind of stuff. But it was a crazy sensation, but I loved it, if that makes sense. You know, it was too much. It was overwhelming. But I was like, damn, I like this. It was more than any cigarette or chewing tobacco or cigar or any kind of nicotine, anything that I've ever tried has given me. Huge rush. And so I was like, damn, that was crazy. I don't think it's for me. So I didn't try it again. A couple months went by, month or two went by, can't remember exactly how long it was, but I had to take a road trip from Colorado to Florida. I was coming out here for, bring my son out here, start looking for houses, things like that. It was just me and my kid on a road trip. And, you know, we're just making this huge life change. And the night of, you know, we were driving out here because he had all his crap that he had to bring out, and he had his pets with him and stuff like that. And I decided we were going to drive, and the night before I could not fall asleep. I don't know what it was. I laid in bed all night, had to wake up the next morning and drive this kid across the country. And I think we were going to stay the night in like Tennessee or somewhere like that. But could not go to sleep. Just laid in bed staring at the ceiling. You know, we're about a lot going on. About to put our house up for sale. You know, another kid was getting ready to go off to college. You know, we have to start looking for a house, all this stuff, right? And just couldn't go to sleep. And then the next morning, it's time to get up and leave. We have to go. He doesn't drive. My son has some conditions, and he can't drive. You know, the disability type stuff. So I'm tired, wiped out, got an energy drink or whatever, and we stop at a gas station about an hour or two out from the house. I'm exhausted. And I go in there, and there weren't Zyns in the store because they had this thing where a factory or their distribution place burned down or something. I can't remember what it was, like mid-2024. And so I went in there and asked for Zyn, not knowing this, and they're like, we don't have Zyn because of this deal that's going on. There's a whole thing, distribution thing that's an issue. But they're like, the guy was like, I use them, and he's like, I'd recommend Rogue. So I got a Rogue. Can of Rogue. 6. I got 6 milligram. And that carried me a long way on that road trip. I was taking them. I was dialed, locked in, plenty of energy, not tired for having been up, you know, 30 some hours or whatever it was going to end up being by that night when I could finally go to sleep. But I was mainlining Rogue the whole day. I think I bought like 2 cans. I went through a can that day, or just about a can. Had trouble sleeping that night. Like, that's how bad. Like, that's how crazy alert and, you know, dialed in I was. And the sensations were really manageable and stuff like that. And I loved it. I loved the focus. I loved the lock-in benefits and all that kind of stuff. So I was like, you know what? I can do this. You know, there's not a lot of research out there suggesting this stuff is too bad. It's not going to give me lung cancer. It's not going to give me this, that, and the other. And like an idiot, you know, lying to myself. And, you know, you're starting in the beginning stages of addiction, basically. And, you know, I like this thing. I like this drug. You know, this is what it is. You know, it is a drug. And so, you know, like all addicts, when you start out doing drugs, you lie to yourself, right? So that's what I did. I was like, oh, this will be fine. I could quit doing this at any time. You know, I'll just use it to get me through this whole move and everything, and I'll be fine. And then I'll just stop using them. And come on, you know, that never happened, right? Eventually switched from Rogue to Zyns. When Zyns came back on the market, because I didn't like doing the mint all the time, because I like to drink something with it, soda or something like that, or coffee or whatever, and I don't like the minty feel. So I switched to coffee flavored Zyn, and that became my go-to. And that's what I did for about 2 years. Just steadily, can a day. Never went beyond can a day, really. You know, I always looked for, I did a lot of things, like anything I could to mitigate the damage of this financially. Tried to be as responsible as I could with it. like I said, never went really over a can a day or anything unless there was like some extenuating circumstance. Never really upped my dosage. I never went above 6 milligram. Never went under that either. But never really tried to quit. The only time I really ended up kind of taking any time off from it was when we went on a cruise, my wife and I didn't bring any with me. Because of course I was hiding this habit, right? A little bit, or at least trying to play it like it wasn't as severe as it was, so I didn't bring any on the cruise with me. Definitely felt it. Definitely, the whole time I'm on the cruise. I got sick. I think it was withdrawals. So I went through withdrawals while I was on a cruise ship for a couple days. But I mean, I was eating so much and partying and drinking and doing the whole deal. It really wasn't that bad. I didn't really notice it too bad. But around that time, I noticed that it wasn't making me feel, probably about a year in, a little over a year in, I was getting to a point where I didn't feel as good on it. I noticed like that 2 p.m. drag. And I've been on carnivore for a long time, so a lot of my mental focus and stuff had already been, fixed by that. And so these kind of things started coming back that I had experienced when I was unhealthy before I got on the carnivore diet, and the carnivore diet kind of cleared like brain fog up, right? That started coming back. Tiredness started coming back, things like that. All the things that I wanted it to do, it was pretty good at. It jolted me up in the morning. I would be able to start working and lock in, things like that. Definitely curbed my appetite. Definitely was able to get across the finish line. I will give it that. But I definitely noticed that it was dragging me down in a lot of areas. I have never been a person who has struggled with anxiety or depression. Sorry guys, my phone died. So like I was saying, I've never struggled with anxiety, depression in my past or anything like that, but I started feeling those kind of sensations, I guess, or those kind of feelings, like just anxious, mostly anxiety. I wouldn't say depression too much, but definitely feelings of like anxiety and stuff like that. So that was the point where I was kind of like, I think I need to rethink this. I didn't, I kind of kept going for a while, and I just noticed like I'd wake up in the mornings and I'd feel good. I would feel really good when I woke up in the morning, but it's in my mind, like it's time for a Zyn. Like it's time for a pouch. You gotta get a pouch in. And I'm just like, it was like, it's a ritual at that point. You hear people say the ritual. It's no bullshit. Like people, it is like ritualistic. And so I got to a point where it was like you wake up and you actually feel pretty damn good in the morning because you haven't had one yet. And you put it in, and then it's like immediate anxiety, like this manufactured sense of impending doom. And it's really only that first pouch, like maybe throughout the day, but like, I don't know. I got to the point where I didn't even want to attack problems anymore. I just like stupid little shit would like worry me so bad. And so that's where I decided I've had enough. This is just making me feel bad all the time. I'm spending a lot of money. I was always looking for deals. Like I'd buy them in rolls, and I'd always go online and find the places where I can get the best deals on them, to where it came out to hopefully, in some cases less than $5 a can. So I did a pretty good job there. Not that it was not pissing money away, because it totally was. Totally is a total waste of money. But I just decided one day, I was like, I've had enough. This is enough. Put one in one morning a few weeks ago, And like just the anxiety kick that came in that day for some reason was really big. And I just was like, I'm sick of this shit. And I went the rest of that day without one because I just didn't want to feel it. And then I kind of was like, oh, well, I can just do that. Like the rest of the day wasn't too bad if I could just have one. Just to start my day. Maybe like that would be enough. And I just do one Zyn a day. But in my mind, I knew that wasn't going to work. You know, I'd be right back to doing it again over and over and over and over again. So I just decided that was enough. I got on the Reddit quitting Zyn forum on Reddit, which was an awesome resource for me. I found out that a lot of people struggle with this. There's a shit ton of people that use it and a shit ton of people that don't want to use it anymore. So that was a great resource. And that day I found that forum. I was like, this is it. This is enough. I'm done. Tossed them all out. Decided never to go through them again. I had tried a little bit to cut back on them before, and my plan was to buy caffeine, like coffee pouches instead. Like there's a lot of good companies that do it, like Grinds and stuff like that, and Wild, that do these like coffee pouches. And so I had kind of tried curbing them with those. I just didn't like them as much as the Zyn. But I kind of used those to help me out a little bit, just so I had the sensation of a pouch in my lip. Which I think did kind of help a bit. It did, a little bit. That way I could kind of have something in there. And that was it, man. I recommend quitting if you're on it. Cold turkey. Don't lie to yourself and say, I'm going to cut back. I'm going to try a different lower dose. I'm going to try this, that, or the other. Just get off the shit. Just throw them in the trash and suffer for a while. The withdrawals are really bad at first. Hunger, irritability, fucked up my sleep, made me sick, the whole deal. Probably going to put some weight back on. I was insatiable when it came to hunger. Absolutely insatiable. But I recommend going cold turkey. I recommend stopping. I recommend leaving a comment or hitting me up if you need help. I recommend checking out the Quitting Zyn forum. And if you don't do them, if there's something you've been thinking about, don't. Flat out don't. I'm not here to tell you what to do or what not to do, but don't. Or quit. You know, don't do them if you don't do them. Quit if you do. Can't recommend it enough. Do what you want, but that's what I recommend. So if my opinion matters, that's what I gotta say. I plan on never doing them again. Feel pretty confident now. It's been a few weeks. I don't really feel a lot of any withdrawals or anything like that. Sometimes I miss them, but my peace of mind, my sanity, and my health moving forward is in my wallet. It's too valuable to me, so I'm good. More videos come. I'll catch you guys in the next one. Hope you got something out of this. Like, subscribe, leave me a comment, talk to me, tell me what you're going through. I'll catch you guys in the next one later.